Welcome, sunny souls, to today's Reddit stories. Try to get me fired. Enjoy the end of your law career. Posted by AgreeableKey3914. I am John. I worked in a pizza shop back when I was in college. I worked with Sarah, a vindictive lady who would stir up a lot of drama. Sarah would pick a target and then bully them into quitting. Where I am at, college students can receive welfare if their parents earn less than a certain threshold. I was ineligible for student support due to my parents' income, even though they didn't support me, and I desperately needed this job. Matt, a new hire, quit after Sarah's harassment. Sarah's attention then turned to me. Sarah would approach my supervisor and spout bokart like, "Hey Mr. Supervisor, I asked John where the snake is and he said the snake is cutting pizzas." This while the supervisor was actually cutting pizzas. She would shout at me with extreme hostility. She wouldn't warn me if pans were hot, a major sin in kitchen jobs. She conspired with her friends to accuse me of slacking off, even though they'd never complained about me until Matt quit. This took a toll on me. My hours were cut, impacting both my financial and mental well-being. I even considered dropping out of college because I was struggling to afford rent. Sarah was illegally claiming student welfare despite being employed by the pizza shop. You can only claim the welfare if you are unemployed. Sarah, in the first year of her law degree, was also aspiring to become a lawyer. The thing about being a lawyer is that you need to be admitted to the bar to begin practicing. The law industry is very strict. Even proven allegations of plagiarism in college would make one permanently ineligible to become a lawyer. Frankly, she was stupid for defrauding the government. There is an anonymous complaints line for welfare fraud. Most of the time the welfare department never follows up. Occasionally, however, they would send officials to investigate. This was one of those few times they followed up. I sent an anonymous tip stating the business, her schedule, her name, and her number. I was on shift when some officials from the welfare department came in, informing that multiple complaints were made against Sarah. I think my boss could have just told them to scram since they probably didn't have a warrant, but instead of doing that he licked their shoes, showing them all of the CCTV footage. The officials then questioned Sarah. She panicked, confessing to everything. I felt no sympathy for her. As a law student, she should have known to remain silent. Long story short, Sarah received a suspended sentence which would most certainly disqualify her from becoming a lawyer. She dropped out of college, while I continued working at the pizza shop and eventually graduated with an associate's. I have an alright job now. Here is my AI opinion. I think it's great that you stood up to Sarah and reported her for welfare fraud. It's not right that she was bullying you and trying to get you fired, and it's even worse that she was committing fraud. I am sure it wasn't easy to do the right thing, especially since it could have potentially caused problems for you and your boss. But in the end, it sounds like it all worked out for the best, and Sarah got what she deserved. It's also great that you were able to graduate and get a good job. I hope you continue to do well, and don't let anyone like Sarah bring you down again. Have you ever experienced bullying in your workplace? How did you handle it? What do you think should be done to address workplace bullying? Up for 156 likes to add.
She was messing with people's livelihoods, doing something she knew was legal while studying law and receiving welfare that should have gone to others. I have no sympathy for her.
This Timboy likes to add.
When you are one whistleblower away from being caught, the sensible thing to do is to not antagonize people. Guess her brain was as crappy as her attitude.
If you want to listen to the latest Reddit stories, subscribing is the way to go. Just click that button and you'll never miss a video. The checks are in the mail. Posted by Goliath. Over the years, my father became increasingly impaired by strokes. His mind was still sharp and he lived alone, but his world got smaller and smaller. I was his primary support. To my family, young and old, I constantly reminded them how much letters, cards, thank you notes, and best of all visits mattered to him. He was not a drag to be around. Everyone got a gift, usually money from him for every occasion. He lived in a beach resort, so it was hardly a hardship to visit him. He left his money in a trust and I am in charge of the assets. My father saved every note, collected all the letters, and he wrote about every visit in his journal. Last week I sat down and tallied it all up. Today, I am mailing checks to all the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, $1, 0 for every note, $2, 0 for every visit, $3, 0/day for anyone who took him on an outing overnight. To further emphasize that I am being petty, the two people who should get nothing under my formula are going to get $500 each just so they know they were no overlooked. A 14-year-old great niece is getting over $100K because she rode her bike over every week and did his yard, etc. The feathers will be flying when the envelopes are opened. Here is my AI opinion. It sounds like your father was a very generous and thoughtful person, and it's wonderful that you are carrying on his legacy by honoring his wishes in this way. It's also great that you are including all of the grandchildren and great-grandchildren in the distribution of his assets, as this will help them feel connected to their ancestor and understand the importance of family. However, I do think it's important to consider the feelings of the two people who may not receive as much money as others under your formula. While it's understandable that you want to be fair and follow your father's wishes, it's also important to be mindful of how your actions may affect others. Perhaps you could consider giving them a smaller amount of money, or finding another way to acknowledge the relationship with your father. Overall, it sounds like you are handling this situation with love and respect for your father's memory, and I think that is something to be commended. How do you think the family members will react when they receive their inheritance? Do you think it's fair to reward certain family members more than others based on their level of involvement with your father? A comment from J151.
Talk to a lawyer before just mailing out checks. The family of a 14-year-old can take all of the money from her if it's not completely protected.
Lego My Alter Ego commented.
Shouldn't you protect the money by keeping it in the trust until they turn 18? I am under the impression parents can just claim that.
Leave your cart in the middle of the aisle? Boasted by Caucus. In a super petty moment today at the grocery store, a couple had left their cart in the middle of the aisle right at the entrance as they wandered off back down the other end. It mildly annoys me when people leave their cart in the middle of the aisle, especially when they are 100 odd feet away. I could make up an excuse that I always think of folks in wheelchairs or parents with a kiddo and a full cart being obstructed by a half-empty abandoned cart. But really I was annoyed and nearly walked into it because I wasn't paying attention. Making a snap judgment based on their age younger than me didn't seem to have any physical impairments that would excuse leaving the cart in the middle of the entrance to the aisle, having a deep discussion about jam an item they had clearly walked past and then left the cart in the middle of the aisle to return to have their discussion. I calmly dropped my 2 items in the cart and pushed it several aisles away before tucking it into the side of the aisle, retrieving my items, 2 jugs of milk if you are curious, and going to pay. I have no idea if they found the cart or when because I didn't care enough to find out. Here is my AI opinion. I think it's understandable that you were annoyed by the couple leaving the cart in the middle of the aisle, especially since it could potentially obstruct other shoppers. However, it's important to remember that we don't know the full context of the situation or the couple's intentions. Perhaps they had a legitimate reason for leaving the cart there, such as needing to retrieve something from their car or having a medical emergency. It's also worth considering the potential consequences of your actions. By pushing the cart away and taking their items, you may have inadvertently caused the couple inconvenience or even financial loss if they were unable to find their cart or if the items were damaged during the move. Additionally, your actions could be perceived as retaliatory or aggressive, which could escalate the situation and lead to further conflict. In situations like this, it's often better to take a deep breath and try to understand where the other person is coming from, rather than jumping to conclusions or taking matters into your own hands. If you feel that the couple's actions are causing a hazard or inconvenience, you could consider speaking with them calmly and respectfully to address the issue. However, it's important to approach the situation with empathy and understanding, rather than anger or aggression. What do you think about the person who left their cart in the middle of the aisle? Do you think it was rude of them to leave their cart there and walk away? Eggplant over 1,927 likes to add.
You're supposed to just add expensive saffron to their cart, silly.
OP answered. I didn't even think of that, honestly. Thanks for tuning in today. Subscribe for more intriguing Reddit stories.